then comes a very genuine question that if the informations that we generated, let's say via superimposition, they are informations, right? And they has to be stored in some place or places which has to be different than the action itself, because action and its explanation, these two cannot coexist with each other. Now the question is the reason, I mean, what is the reason that actually triggers this urge to have these explanations as enjoyments again and again? I mean, there is not a single moment which is devoid or which is absent of any, which is not having any experience. I mean, throughout the waking state, we are experiencing different actions with different meanings or explanations, etc. In the dreaming state, we are also experiencing different actions with meaning and explanations, which also superimposed by us. So, and also during thoughts, when we see something or listen to something, there is the triggering process of the series of thoughts which are interconnected. So what's the reason? I mean, is it the desire automatically creating the chain of experiences, or it is the observation of any objectified action that we perceive in our surroundings? Is it the object that triggers the desire to that triggers the desire of similar kind of enjoyments, to enjoy the similar kinds of enjoyments, or it is the desire that wants to enjoy the enjoyments irrespective of what object we are having in front of us, right? That we need to, I mean, that is a fact. I mean, we don't know yet which is triggering which desire to the enjoyments, or the objects triggering the desire, then the enjoyments we are pursuing to enjoy. So there has to be desire. I mean, without desire there won't be any enjoyment, right? Then there is the self-awareness, and the desire actually works when the self-awareness is present. I mean, desire and self-awareness, they are just they always coexist with each other. Whenever there is desire, there has to be self-awareness. Without self-awareness, there will be no desire. And to have desire, there has to be the information of the enjoyments that I want to desire to enjoy, right? So self-awareness, desire, the ability to observe the actions, and also the actions, and also the projection of different explanations. I mean, there are a lot of things that has to be present at the same time, right? Otherwise there will be no enjoyment of any experiences. So this diagram, if we see that any action that we perceive is objectified by us, in absolute sense there is only action, no actions, and the action is basically observable but indescribable. All the descriptions we give to the objectified actions via discontinuation, right? And to describe, we bring different concepts like energy, object, consciousness. We don't know any of them because they are unknowable. What is observable is the action, but that is also unexplainable. We project our explanation, right? We project our explanation to them. Now the question comes, how we are able to project the explanations? I mean, is the object triggering the explanation, or I am projecting the explanation to the object, right? That is also a tricky situation that we have to deal with. We have to remember that. So let's summarize the facts that we we observed, and then we took the inference. So the interpretations must be stored in somewhere else different than the actions. That has become actual fact right now, right? If we went through the previous discussions, then this is quite evident that the action and its interpretation as an information or explanation, whatever, that has to be stored in somewhere else. Action, actual higher level of reality, and the lower level of reality, these two has to be different. So far we have discussed, based on that discussion, we are bound to say that, right? We are not believing anything, we are just following the observation. They has to be different. Now the second thing is, when we observe a particular process of objectification, then we know that the very explanation is false. When we know that explanation is already false, then we are one step ahead or one step higher than the absolute complete falsity, right? Or ignorance. So there has to be different levels of reality, if we term the levels like that. So one is when we are total completely ignorant about everything and we are believing all the explanations that either we have them or borrowed from somewhere else, and we are trying to enjoy all those things, all those explanations as enjoyments. Then when we observe, we know that they are not what we think, because the process of thought itself is projecting, right? Projecting explanations to the objects. So that actually elevates us to one step upper or one step higher than the ground level, which is total ignorance. So there has to be different layers, right? It's not like only one level or one state of ignorance or falsity. There are different levels of interpretations, right? And the interesting thing is, all interpretations has to be false because those are interpreted by us. So the informations are false, but the act of observation, or the the skill to observe, let it say like that the skill to observe, or the level of observation has to be different in different layers, right? In order to know the falsity of those interpretations. So there has to be different levels of observation. So the in the ground level, there is no observation at all, right? We are blindly just groping in the darkness. But when we are one step upper or higher, then we have acquired some degree of observation skill, and that makes us little bit better situation or condition. So we know right now that there is the progress is possible, right? The progress of what? The progress of getting closer and closer to us. By what? By observing all the falsity, all the interpretations, all the explanations that we projected on the existence. And then comes the different levels of observability, right? So there is, of course, different level of observability. One level is complete blind, then comes little bit progress in the observation. We don't know what remains in the upper state. So when we will observe the our present state, that is one step upper than the ground state, then we will be in the third state, right? So each step, if we observe, then we will be one step ahead. That's the simple rule. We are now observing the absolute ignorance or blindness. That means we are one step ahead. When we will observe that state, we will be one step ahead. We don't know whether there is any state or anything, but we have to observe that which state we are right now. That's another quest or another uh, goal or another progress, let's say. The thirst to observe everything and the thirst to get closer to us, because more you see all the falsity, more you are closer to yourself, right? Because all the falsity will be directing you to the outside, and you will be completely your attention will be diverted in the in the ignorance, and uh, there will be suffering because you will try to have the enjoyments that you believe you can fulfill. So there will be a lot of problems going on. But once you have the skill to observe, then you will find what excitement is and what is actual enjoyment, right? Then exactly the possibility of having multiple levels of observations that we just discussed right now. So this is actually fact. I mean, no denial that there has to be different layers of observability or observation, right? There is no belief, nothing. Plain and simple fact. You observe something, you are one step ahead of it. You observe that thing, you are one step ahead of it, right? Plain and simple thing. No logic is required. This is just simple observation. So that's a fact. Let's go to the next one. So each level has to be different degrees of clarity, right? I mean, it's not like it's the same kind of statement like the observability or different level of clarity, whatever you say, because when the clarity increases, you will be able to observe uh, properly, right? And that clarity depends on a lot of conditions that we will know how what are the conditions that need to take care of, etc. And definitely, the term illumined is basically because observation needs consciousness, and without consciousness, there won't be any observation possible, right? So that's the important thing. And another thing, the more you know the falsity, the desire to know more will increase. And that's actually a very good thing. The more you want to know the 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 explanations, the interpretations that is projected by you, the more you will know their falsity and the more you will be close to yourself, right? That's also a fact. Uh, yes, so let's go to the next slide. So is it like that we all have different desires, or the desires are basically same? It's the object that actually triggers the urge to fulfill some enjoyment. So is it like I have a particular desire which is different than you, uh, or uh, or you can say that two brothers or two sisters or two siblings are raised in the same family, but they have different desires. Uh, those kind of arguments are also there. So we have to observe also Is it the different objects that are triggering different desires to enjoy a particular enjoyment, or it is the desire, or it is the previous impressions that we are carrying, which are making us susceptible to a particular enjoyment, to enjoy a particular enjoyment, that we have to also observe, right? And then comes uh, the difference in the superimposition. So let's say any object, when we see by objectification of an action, the importance of that object will be different. For me, maybe a pen will be very useful, but for someone else, that can be completely useless because his interest is not fulfilled or will not be fulfilled by that pen, right? So, based on the desire for a particular enjoyment, our priorities for different objects get changed. And that is because we project explanation that this is not so useful right now, but it can be useful maybe later. So for all of us in a particular time, the importance or the meaning or the explanation will be completely different for a particular object, right? That's a fact. Okay. And irrespective of similar physical and chemical environments, we have different desires, like that just we discussed before, that two siblings, they raised in a similar environment, but they have different desires, right? Now to consider all these three, what is the main problem that we encounter? The main problem is it can be either uh, universal or individual, right? For each statement, it can be either individual, like we all have different desires, or same desire, different superimpositions, same superimpositions, right? Then why this difference actually come? I mean, there is choices, right? Whether it is universal or individual, universal or individual. Now, that is the most problematic situation when we have the body consciousness, that is I and my, right? So that actually creates the very seed or the very root of superimposition, and all sorts of choice and creating choices. We select individual or universal, good or bad, ugly or beautiful, like that. That we will discuss when we will consider the mechanism of superimposition. But right now, just look at it that there is absolute continuity, right? But due to our ignorance about continuity, we think we are individual and then we are trapped, whether it's my individual experience or it's an universal experience. It's an individual superimposition or the universal superimposition. There is nothing called universal. Sorry, there is nothing called individual. Everything is universal because we are a particular continuum, right? There is no discontinuity. But we think we are individual, and that creates a lot of problems. So that we have to take care of, or remember, right? We cannot forget everything and just go through like a wind is blowing without any thought or without any observation. The observation is the most important thing. Thoughts can be another levels of superimposition or a superimposition, you see. So whenever you have some time, just observe. Take any particular object or any thought and observe how you are objectifying your explanation, your thought. But when you are interacting in day-to-day life, you have to live in these objectifications, right? Otherwise, it will be impossible to interact with all of us, between among all of us. That's okay. I mean, without the presence of falsity, how you will be observe any falsity. If there is only truth and truth, there will be impossible to identify what truth is, right? So there has to be falsity to know that this is false. Okay. We again have some questions like, is the storage is individual? Right now we discussed that there is like different layers of observability, right? So those different layers are basically termed here as the storage. So the storage is basically the layers. Uh, layers are. So we should, based on our discussion, based on our observation, we should have different layers of observability with different degrees of clarity, right? And now we have again the same question, is that different layers which is kind of stacked, and there is a channel that has to be connecting all the dots, right? One level to the next level to the next level. That's a picture that come into our mind, right? That picture is also objectified, but that can be a possibility. But just don't forget, all the time any objectification has to be through superimposition, and any superimposition is false. Don't forget that. I mean, if you forget that, you will be trapped in all sorts of nonsense again. So okay, that's a interesting thing to discuss. And then comes the not universal kind of thing, whether it is individual or universal, the same thing that we just discussed. And then another question comes that because we have our own borrowed and false explanations. So whether we have the explanations already that is triggered by someone else's explanation, because if we don't have the meaning or the understanding of what he or she is saying to us, we won't be able to understand what he or she is saying, right? So that's another interesting thing, that we think that we are borrowing some falsity, but in higher level of reality, you will realize that that borrowed falsity is actually present within you. You just got triggered by any interaction or any kind of discussion, right? Otherwise it will be impossible to know anything, because you have to be possessing that knowledge, that information before. Otherwise you won't be able to correlate with what I am saying to you, right? So more you will go to the depth of self knowledge, the more strange things you will discover, that all the knowledges are within you. I mean, there can be infinite informations or infinite knowledges, whatever you can say. They has to be within you as a fact, no assumption. Because anything or any idea that you perceive and you think that it is new, I am learning, I am taking from someone else's. First of all, there is continuity. Second, you won't be able to perceive that thought or that sentence or anything without having the pre-existing knowledge about that. Think about that. I mean, sorry, observe this thing. It's very crucial for the progress. I mean, once you realize it, you will have a boost, that you will have a good push towards a goal, that is the self knowledge. So then again, all these question marks are given just to remember, or just to make a note, that when we are discussing with continuity in our mind, there is everything universal. Everything universal. There is nothing, only the existence. But when we are dealing with the differences, which is lower level of reality, then we will take those objectified actions as the lower level of facts, and based on that we can say that the storages or layers of observabilities are individual. But once you make progress, you will realize that they are basically universal, right? uh, okay.